What's up guys, Kylan with Legends Boxing, and today we're going to talk about hand wrapping, specifically for amateur competitors and amateur competition, and the rules and guidelines and kind of the how-to. Hand wrapping for fighters is awesome. It is a very cool bonding, calming experience for a fighter, especially right before a fight. Big emphasis on that. When you're wrapping a fighter's hands, you want to take your time as you do it. Again, cool thing, takes time to go over the game plan, calm the fighter down, really get them into a good headspace. So when I'm wrapping hands, I don't try to rush them through it and move on to the next person. I really do want to take that time and get close with the fighter. Couple things you guys are going to need. USA Boxing does set an allowance for the amount of tape that you are, or in gauze that you're allowed to use. 45 feet is the maximum you can use for gauze. And so right here in my pockets, I have two 15-yard rolls. So you can use 45 feet per hand. That comes out to 90 feet, 15 yards, 30 yards with two. That's the equal amount. So I use one of these rolls per hand. They also do make 10-yard rolls as well. So just make sure you know what the yardage is of the gauze that you're using before you use it. Also, they allow for 30 feet or 16 feet per hand of tape. This is a 30-yard roll of athletic tape. This I'll be dividing this in half per hand. Also, it does totally depend on the amount of the fighter and how large they are. The model you're going to see that I'm wrapping her hands today, she's going to have smaller hands, so I probably won't be using all of this. There is a this is the maximum amount you're allowed to use, and you're not allowed to go over that, okay? Same thing with the tape. It's got to be an inch thick, no more wider than that. Let's roll into the tutorial. All right, guys, we're going to get into the hand wrapping tutorial here. So I've got my 15-yard rolls. I'm going to use one of these rolls per hand. Again, depending on the size of their hand, you don't have to use all of it, but that is the maximum you're allowed to use per hand. So how I always get started is I always kind of massage their hands, make sure they're loose, work their hands through, talk to them, go over the game plan, make sure that their hands are okay, there's no damage or anything with the physician didn't pick up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this roll and I'm going to have her open up her hands nice and wide. And I'm going to measure her knuckles, right? This is going to be for the padding that I place over top of the knuckles. I kind of match my hands on it there. Flip it right here. There we go, make it a little easier. Perf. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my hand. And since this is a 15-yard roll, I'm going to take about 5 yards out of it for the hand wrapping. Try to make it as neat and tight as possible. That way it's not all over the place, lots of frayed edges, doesn't look like garbage. Again, I'm just going to roll it until I get about 5 yards. As you do this, you can measure, but also it just helps to, you'll get a feel for it as well, as long as you're keeping at a minimum of 15 yards on the hand or 45 feet, you should be good. Probably do a couple more loops here. Perfect. I'm just going to cut that. Make sure you got your safety scissors on hand. Awesome. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to set it to the side. I don't need it quite yet, but I will need it in a second. Then I'm going to take the remainder of my roll. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little thumb loop in it, just like this. That way I can put it on her thumbs. There we go, just like this. Make sure she keeps her hands nice and wide. We want to make sure her hands stay relaxed and rested, right, so she doesn't fatigue her wrists. But also that as I'm doing this, I don't tighten it too tight to where she starts losing blood flow. I want to be relaxed with this, keep it nice and loose, but not go too tight. So again, I'm going to probably go around the wrist about 10-ish times. One more there, perfect. Now I'm going to go around the thumb. Now when you go around the thumbs, you want to make sure you go all the way around. I see a lot of coaches where they'll go around the thumb and then they'll just continue to wrap like this. That kind of impedes her ability to lock her thumb in, right? So I'm going to go all the way around the thumb, back to the wrist. Again, I'm going to go all the way around the thumb, back to the wrist. We'll do that probably twice. That way she'll be able to close her hand to a fist comfortably. Good. And now I'm going to come right up here, okay, to the knuckles. Mary, if you mind putting your finger right there, thank you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to lay this across the knuckles. Now, real quick, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll put it up here and they'll lay it right down the middle of the knuckles. Now, I don't like to do that, and the reason why is because I notice, and you know, USA Boxing officials and whoever's handing out the wraps will too, that when she makes a fist, so you make a fist from real quick, that doesn't really cover the knuckles, right? That's easy to pull up and move. So I want to make sure those knuckles get the coverage they need. So I like to take this and I move it up to these middle grooves in the finger. Okay, that's where I'm going to wrap, is up at those middle grooves. So again, I'm going to take this, come over here, I'm going to wrap across her hand, just like this. With this gauze, you're not going to go in between the fingers, okay? So don't go in between the fingers with the gauze. Okay, I'm going to go over that a couple times. I'm going to go back over around the wrist, back over to the knuckles. Good, not too tight. Mary, feels right?
Yep.
Good. Again, continue to work myself through the wrist. About just like so. And like I said, you don't have to use all of this either, right? I feel like she's got a pretty sufficient amount there. Will you put your finger right there? Hold that for me. Cool, and I'm gonna cut this. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tape that portion off on the wrist, right here. Give her a couple rolls of tape. Awesome. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to tape off the knuckles and go in between the fingers. So they allow for you to use a 1/4 inch of tape in between the fingers. Now this is a 1 inch thick roll. I have to have a 1/4 inch in between the fingers. So I'm not going to slice this into 4 thin pieces. That'd be monotonous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a good measurement for the amount I need. I take 2 of these, so right there. One more, like this. Again, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a little cut right here, right down the middle. I cut right here. Okay, and that allows me to tear this right in half. Good, I'm gonna set that right there. So now what I'm gonna have her do is I'm gonna have her flip her wrist over. Cool, and I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna kind of ball it up right here. Almost like a little ball, little bar she can hold on to. I'm going to take this tape, I'm going to bunch it together, kind of wrap around this. Then I'm going to pinch it off right in half. That makes it a 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm going to have her flip her hands back over, make a fist for me. Good, I'm going to go right over the knuckles, just like that. Now flip over again, do it all the way over again. I'm going to flip it over right here. And try to bunch it up right there, pull it nice and tight. Pinch it in half, flip it over again, make that fist. Good, go all the way back over. I forgot to cut this one, we're gonna do it one more time. A lot of times I do all this prep work before I wrap their hands, but just for the sake of the video and the example I'm showing you guys. Okay, let's do this one right here. There we go. Flip it over, and we're just gonna pinch it off. Cool, and I'm gonna go right over, right there. Okay, good, perfect. Now I'm gonna have her hold the fist. What I'm gonna do is open your hands real quick. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to wrap over the wrist. Then I'm gonna have her make a fist. So squeeze the fist nice and tight. The reason I ever do that is because as I wrap this tape around the wrist, right, I want it to be in the lock position where it's gonna be the most expanded, so that way it doesn't cut off her circulation. Okay, open up your hands. Now when you're taping, we gotta be cautious that we can only tape an inch back from the knuckles. So I can't tape on top of the knuckles, only an inch back. So if her knuckles are right here, I'm just gonna kind of lock it in place right here. I'll flip her wrist over. I'm gonna go over this little bar that we made, flip it back over. Good, just go over top, make a fist real quick. Good, pull that nice and tight, open your hands up. Come back through here, make a fist, squeeze nice and tight. Good again, going over. I'm gonna just finish it off right here on the wrist. Good, good, good. I'll flip it over, make sure this is nice and tight, nice and comfortable. Make sure it's not too tight for the fighter. Make a fist, nice and tight. Good. And that's just the basics of what will be passed off, what can be approved. We want to make sure that these do get checked off by an official at the table. They will not let you get your gloves at a glove table if you don't sign these, so they need to be signed off by an official, checked. I can pull these up. I can't expose the knuckles. There's just sufficient enough padding there. There are lots of different ways, but this is a good basic way of how to get the hands wrapped and also passed off. All right, guys, thank you for watching. That was just a quick example. Ideally, you know, if you are at a competition with a fighter, you do want to make sure you take a little bit more time or a lot of bit more time to really, again, interact, bond with the fighter, but also make sure you're going through each individual step properly and ultimately making sure that their hands are wrapped correctly. If the fighter, you know, make sure to ask them if it is too tight. You know, they may wear it around for a second and find that the wraps are too tight and a little bit uncomfortable. Well, it's their fight, right? So you may have to cut them off and re-wrap until you get it right. Also, if the officials or anybody from USA Boxing or the event gives you guys feedback on wraps when they send it back, make sure to take that feedback and apply it. But again, really cool experience. And really getting to work with and bond with the fighter. I've always loved it when I competed and having that interaction with my coach and getting those hands wrapped. So try this out. Again, take it slow, take it easy, practice this a lot as well. Practice makes perfect, especially leading up to fight day. You're not gonna wanna have to redo it a bunch of times on the day of the fight. So thank you guys for watching.